I guess I can't see. Okay, well, probably the main stream of weakness that has flowed through my entire life is that I just go with the flow. I've always taken the path of least resistance and never planned for my future, figuring if you don't know what's ahead downstream, then you can't be disappointed, and I went along like that. I actually spent part of my childhood living on a sailboat, and I'm thinking this may have contributed because I read a lot of choose your own adventure books on that boat, and when I was done with the trip, I remember telling people what I really got out of living on a boat was that life does not have to conform to any norm. It can be whatever you want it to be. You don't have to live in a house. You could live on a boat or in an RV, and I went along this way. I was also very naive and childlike for a long time. I sucked my thumb until I was almost 20 years old, and that is not a joke. My parents, they were very supportive of me, and I didn't go to college until I was 4 years out of high school. They paid for my car insurance. I figured when I was ready to be an adult, I would get married, and my husband would take care of the insurance and taxes and do all that adult stuff. I eventually did get married, and when I was expecting my first child, I thought, pregnancy is hard, and thankfully the hard part only lasts 9 months. Just shows you how naive I was, but I was also lucky and went along floating downstream, and I ended up moving to the town of Long Lake, which appropriately, now that I think of it, it matched my mentality, because if you know anything about Long Lake, it really is a wide, lazy stretch of the Racket River. And there I was, and I settled into life, and I went about getting my jobs in that same go-with-the-flow path of least resistance. If the job was offered to me and I could choose, like turn to page 30 if you want to be a babysitter, I would turn to page 35 if you want to be a substitute at the school or clean camps. And I did this, okay? So I already said you go along the river, and in some ways it's easier not to know what's ahead of you, but you also don't know when the rapids are coming or the falls. And I live in a very small town of Long Lake. It's very small, so small that my youngest son, Charlie, and I were walking to the beach one day, and we meet Marty. And Marty is a man in his 80s, and he's wearing a captain's hat, and he beckons us over from the sidewalk, and he says he's from Manhattan, and he raised his kids on Long Island, and he moved up to Long Lake to start the boat tour business. And he considers himself a fly by the seat of his pants sort of guy, and he's always run on intuition, and his intuition tells him that he wants me to come work for him. And I said, well, I did live on a boat when I was a kid. And he said, great. He said, but I want you to run the snack shack. And think about it. It'll be fun. Come work for me. I'll take care of you, he says. He has a very thick Manhattan, Long Island accent. And he says he'll take care of me. As we're walking home, my son Charlie pulls me aside and he said, yeah, Mom, but what did he mean he was going to take care of you? And I said, I don't know. We'll find out. And I agreed to go work for him. So I didn't mention that this is only a summertime job. Summer in Long Lake is the busiest, shortest season. And if you think about all the people that flood into that narrow space. It's a lot like rapids. And once you get in those rapids of summertime, anyone that makes their money in the summer in Long Lake is very busy, and it is like being on a raft, going down the rapids, and you're on this crazy ride, and you don't get off until the fall or until the falls. And Marty told me that we would be partners. He could do the boat tour business, and my daughter and I would run the shack, and we took the orders and made the food and served the food and set up and cleaned up. And Marty and his wife Janet restocked in the night. They would come to the shack at night and restock all of our supplies. Both of them in their 80s. One thing is that I told you, Marty also was a guy that goes with the flow, and I was a girl that goes with the flow, and we thought this would be really fun, but as you know, in any relationship, someone has to be the adult. I was learning day by day that Marty was not really interested in being the adult. And he was more interested in sitting out back in the Adirondack chairs with his buddies and talking, and they would race the clouds. Like, you would hear them say, well, wait till the wind comes and mine's gonna get ahead of yours. And I look out, and he's got this black shirt, and it's stretched over, and the sun's lighting up the black shirt, and it's all covered with croissant crumbs. And Joe has an everything bagel, and you know how many seeds come out of an everything bagel. And it's the height of the rapids of summertime in Long Lake, and there's a line from our window all the way to the sign, which is like 25 people deep, and my daughter and I are the only two people that are taking the orders and making the food, and Marty comes in, and he needs to make his bagel and lox for him and a pastrami sandwich for Joe, and he doesn't care about the long line of people, and there's tension. And for a person that goes with the flow all the time, this was a lot of stress for me, and I realized that I needed to make the money to pay for the inventory. I go, and I have to get there at 9 in the morning instead of 11, because he's never there at 11. And I go in there to find the key. It's not there. I look, I say, okay, what do I have to work with in this shack to make the day? I open the freezer to see what I have, and there's the key next to the flashlight. And I proceed with the day. Okay, so I got to wrap this up. And what ends up happening is my general attitude changes over that summer, and I realize I'm working 7 days a week, 10 to 12 hours a day, and if I can handle that much responsibility, then what I ended up doing was taking a full-time job, which I thought I would never do because I thought I would always want the freedom of the go with the flow, but I accepted a full-time job at the Long Lake Central School District in the kitchen, and I get paid days off and full benefits, and I actually feel freer than ever before. Thank you.